Hello and welcome to another edition of Different Perspectives. I'm Paul Ndiho in Washington. Today we examine the rapid expansion of data centers across Northern Virginia, an industry powering the internet and artificial intelligence, while increasingly reshaping the communities around it. Supporters say data centers are essential infrastructure. Residents say the costs are becoming impossible to ignore. Tonight, on Different Perspectives, we bring both sides into the conversation. But first, I drove by some of these data centers earlier this morning, and here is more. No signs and no windows, just concrete walls and a constant hum. These massive buildings are data centers. Silent factories are powering the internet, artificial intelligence, and much of the modern world. Northern Virginia is now the world's data center capital. Hundreds of facilities are stretched from Fairfax to Prince William to Loudoun County, handling a large share of global internet traffic and fueling the rapid growth of AI. But for residents living nearby, the boom comes with a cost. Constant construction, rising noise levels, and growing concerns over energy use. Electricity prices in the region have climbed sharply in recent years, and critics say households are competing with big tech for power and water. Experts warn that AI-driven data centers demand unprecedented amounts of energy, sometimes rivaling the needs of the entire cities, raising new questions about sustainability and fairness. Supporters point to billions in tax revenue, jobs creation, and economic growth, while opponents say the pace is too fast, the impact is too heavy. The fight over data centers isn't just about technology, it's about who pays the price for progress. And now joining us are Elena Scholberg, who formed a citizen association to push back against the unchecked growth of data centers in her community, and Greg Pilio, a Loudoun County resident whose front door now sits steps away from one of these massive facilities. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to you both. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Good.
I guess let me start with you, Greg. Greg, I drove by your area there, and your house is right opposite these data centers. Tell us what you hear, what you think about these centers here.
Well, Paul, I live 150 yards or 150 meters away from a data center that was came online earlier this year. That's 2025. And unbeknownst to me and all residents in our community, this data center is not even connected to the electric grid. So it has its own gas turbine power plant. And then it has backup diesel generators on it. This was never in the planning stage. This was never revealed to us by in the community meeting that the data center had. And so what we're getting from the gas turbine generators are loud noises 24/7. And some days it's just blasting. It's like having a few jet engines, airplanes operating near your house. And I felt deceived by the fact that this wasn't revealed to us in the community before or when they held the community meetings with us. And it got passed, rezoned, allowed by our county. And for some reason, some of the people voting on it didn't even realize that. So there's a lot of of anger in our community about what this means. I mean, you don't want to go outside much anymore. Um, uh, you can it can disrupt people's sleep at night. Um, it There are no more birds in the area because of the sound, uh, um, and we're concerned about our property values. Obviously, to have this nearby making all this noise, and so I'm one who firmly believes that you take your anger and you transform it into action. And so I've been organizing our community with the help of the an important environmental group in this area, the Piedmont Environmental Council, to organize our community to try to mitigate the harm that this data center is causing us. So, in a nutshell, that's what happened to us. And then we don't know anything about the exhaust from um, uh, this uh, data center and having its own power plant on site and what that means for our health. And so there are groups trying to measure that now, but that's an unknown. But it is a real concern.
Elena, I see you nodding, and you've been in the fight longer. You've been pushing back on these data centers. Help us understand the background, how some of these data centers found themselves in Loudoun County.
So, the history of, so I'm in Prince William County, and the history of the internet and data centers really begins with the first AOL headquarters, which was in Loudoun. And so we're in an area that is right outside Washington, D.C. And so not only are we close to the national government, but all the fiber has been built out into Northern Virginia, which is why you see this concentration of data centers in Loudoun and Prince William. Whoever came up with the cloud was a genius, because as you can hear from what Greg is describing, it's not in the cloud. Your data is not in the cloud. It's next to homes, it's next to national parks. It is competing with critical resources that the community needs to survive. And that's the conflict.
Interesting. At what point did residents realize that these data centers were no longer just background infrastructure, but a daily reality for both of you?
Well, for me, I only realized when I had this negative impact after they built this massive data center near my house. The data centers they were building were near Dulles Airport, in open fields and things like that. And now they've increasingly encroached on residential areas and communities. That's when I became aware, really paid attention to it. We all going about our lives, and then to have it there. And let me also say that when we were presented with the plan for this site, it was just a much smaller building, something like 1/6 the size. No revelation that there would be a power plant on. They said that the diesel generators that are the backup would be on the other side. And a few months later, they got this huge, massive thing approved. And so we feel it was like a bait and switch tactic. I don't know what went through their minds, but that's what we felt.
How about you, Elena? How has this constant construction noise changed the quality of life of the people you represent in your community?
So I just want to, so for me, I became involved in the impacts of the infrastructure of the data center industry over now going into year 11. The data center impacts are if they're next door to you, but it's also the transmission line impacts that can go on for miles that take your private property in order to bring the power to the substations for the data centers. So what people are experiencing is a multifaceted of impacts. They're experiencing the constant construction, and then when they're built, they experience the noise from the chillers on top. And then because there's no power in the grid right now, they're experiencing the diesel generators turning on as microgrids. They're experiencing these gas plants that are basically jet engines being brought on site. And so they're experiencing the noxious smell of the diesel, the gas, the noise, the transmission line infrastructure. It's a wholesale change of your community, and its tentacles spread far and wide. Now people, whether you live next door to any of this infrastructure, now you'll feel it in your water utility bills, your electricity utility bills. We are dealing with an industry that is subsidized by all of us. So they socialize the very blood of their industry, what they need to survive, on the residents. And that's an impact that now is spread far and wide. And it is causing a near collapse of our electricity grid.
How about to people who said that, for example, both of you have phones, have computers, you all use these data centers, it's right in the palm of your hands. How about people who argue that maybe for these data centers to survive, for people to use, to send email, for people to maybe get on ChatGPT, they need this infrastructure built so that it can enable other people to tap into that technology.
Paul, what we're seeing here is like a second industrial revolution taking place. And think of these data centers more as factories than just these innocent buildings. And so these things have to be done in a way that reduce the harm to communities, that keep human beings at the center with, we have to value human life, the quality of human life, the environment, the nature, and all of these things. So if we're going to do this, let's do it in a way that minimizes the impact, gives some of the benefits, and also just guarantees that I've done a lot of work on the extractive industry in Africa and elsewhere, where the other side of this is, and that is all the mining for strategic minerals that are done to build these data centers and to the electric vehicles and the green economy, and just like there, where that can have a negative impact on local communities, and there's so many examples of that. We have to be working locally and globally to make sure that this new industrial age that we're getting into really puts human values at the center of it.
Elena, let me come back to you. Earlier you talked about, for example, how energy bills have risen sharply. Why do residents believe they are paying the price for big tech, especially in Northern Virginia here, and pretty much maybe across the country? I've also had similar stories where these data centers are. That's one of the complaints a lot of people are talking about, the high energy cost, the bills that they are paying. But on the other hand, the counties are arguing that they're making, for example, Loudoun is making $1 billion out of these data centers. So how do you square that two?
Okay, so first of all, let me address, it's not your phone, it's not your emails. Okay, it is a push for an industry that is now taken on an incredible amount of debt themselves to make a product work that we are all subsidizing for them. So if they think it's so terrific, then they should be paying for their own energy infrastructure and their own generation. And then we'll see how much they can really afford to promote a product that apparently is not making them any money yet. So I want to address that. How do I know that we're paying? Because the coalition was involved in a transmission line case where we proved that the transmission infrastructure is borne by the ratepayers. The generation, the new gas plants, the new nuclear plants, the transmission lines that are going into other states and bringing power to Virginia is foisted on the ratepayers. There is no debate. That is a plain fact. In fact, Virginia is a part of a regional grid network called PJM. PJM representatives are saying, now, we cannot afford to have any locality approved data centers until we get a better handle on how we're going to provide the power, because we are experiencing threats to our reliable grid. That's how I know, because there were studies, because Dominion Energy is admitting, that's our monopoly utility, that the push for all the transmission is being borne by the ratepayers. There is no rate structure that has changed to create a tariff specific to data centers. And as far as the revenue, so if you live in Loudoun and you're benefiting, but a transmission line is coming from Maryland and taking people's private property to bring Loudoun County energy, does that sound fair? And on top of that, we know that we have left $1 billion in tax incentives and write-offs for the data center industry in the state of Virginia. So somebody's paying for that write-off, and it's us, the ratepayers, the little guy that's struggling.
Would it make a difference if these data centers have the ability or are able to produce their own power, produce their own water? Would it make a difference?
Well, let me just, if you don't mind, just for a second, you see what's happening. They are producing a little bit. They're producing a bridge until they get to the grid, and those are the gas turbines. And it's physics and math are their problem right now. There is no way to create water. All the water we have on the planet is here now. There is no creating water.
Do you feel like the local governments moved too fast, maybe without fully understanding the long-term impact of some of these data centers?
I from my observation is, I think a lot of our elected officials were naive and very much influenced by the data center lobbyists about all the benefits, and then the idea that they could get local property taxes from it and increase that. I don't think they understood the impact themselves, and that's part of the challenge of our democracy right now, is that we have these wealthy corporations able to lobby officials at the state level and at the local level, and there is very little outreach to communities, to engage communities about all that this means in that. And so we need to have, in fact, one of the things I'm proposing in our county here is that we develop an office of community engagement, so that on issues that we're actually going out to the community before the technocrats make their decisions and things are done, and then we're brought in at the last minute. So from somebody who just jumped into this because of the negative impact it's having on my neighborhood, and my neighbors, myself, etc., this is how I see part of the problem.
Elena, you've been in the trenches for a while. I want to hear your thoughts on this one.
Oh, it's money. It's obscene amounts of money into the ability for elected leaders to run at every level. It's an alliance between the monopoly utility Dominion that owns the General Assembly in Richmond, that donates to both parties. So it is about money. Because you see, even in Loudoun and Prince William, they know now. They know the impacts now. You cannot ignore the facts that we have been able to disclose and force into the public domain and discussion. And yet they still approve projects. Even in Loudoun and even in Prince William, they are still approving projects. Why? Unless you have in Western Prince William, what we've been able to do is no matter how much money the data center gives to either lobbyists or PACs or directly to candidates, if you're not on the right side of this issue, you're not going to get elected. In fact, not only will you not get elected, you'll lose your job. That's how you're going to get change.
You bring up a greater point there. I've been reading and doing research about this subject. There are people who suggest that resisting, like for example, like you guys who are pushing back, you are resisting development. And so the question is, are you resisting development, or is it about demanding better planning for your counties?
I'll go first. I'm resisting the abuse of our public utilities such that they are allowed to distort the public process. The public utilities were intended to bring power to rural areas. What we are experiencing is distortion of that process, such that they are now risking our reliable power and our affordable power. So this is not, when progress is at the cost of your quality of life, of your access to clean water, access to reliable and affordable energy, and that it actually is able to, the utility is able to exercise eminent domain, that's not a fair exchange anymore. And when you're on the receiving end of that impact, of all of those impacts I've just described, the question is very different. The question is, why are we allowing the wealthiest corporations in the world to absorb our access to clean water, our access to reliable and affordable energy? That's the question.
Interesting perspective there. Would it make a difference if these big tech, these corporations maybe figured out how to at least maybe take care of the county taxes for you guys instead of you guys paying taxes? If they did that, would that make a difference for every single resident?
Well, that's some of the county officials argue that we're getting all this revenue, but how about my quality of life? All this noise constantly like this. One of my neighbors, someone who lives in this area, who's about a quarter mile away from the data center, has to put a mattress on his window so that he doesn't hear the sound at night, so he can sleep.
Great point. In fact, you sent me a video where there's so much hum, like you hear the humming noise.
Yeah. And some of it is at really high pitch, which really bothers people. It gives people's headaches. And how do we mitigate that? We're organizing the community now to fight back, if you will, to reduce this harm that is being done and get some justice here. This is an issue of social justice. And one of the things is our area has a lot of minority households that I feel my zip code is almost 50% Hispanic, many of them recent immigrants. Who's representing them? So we're trying to do that now, to get out and do that. So there's that factor going on too. And why they ever allowed a power plant to be built next to a residential area is beyond me. But to go even further, right now the data center companies are pushing the state Corporation Commission to no the DEQ, that's the Department of Environmental Quality, to allow them to produce on site more and more from the diesel generators they have. And in Loudoun County, there are thousands of them. The pollution from that is going to be off the charts, and so people are fighting back against it, but they're fighting back against really big money. And that's the challenge to our democracy right now.
Elena, what protections do you think residents want before any future data centers are approved?
So first of all, that question about your tax, my taxes have never gone down. We've never had so much data center development, and they've never been so high. So, and the point that Greg so eloquently just presented to everybody is, are you willing to risk your life? There are people who will be breathing in these diesel generator fumes who have asthma. I mean, you're talking about these generators, they're not the size of what you get at your local Lowe's store. They are the size of tractor trailers, of freight train compartments. I mean, they are massive. So no, people are not willing to risk, literally, it's not just unpleasant to hear the noise. It is a health risk. The noise, the diesel fumes, your question is, what would make them acceptable?
Yes.
They need to take less. They need to take less of everything, less land, less water, less power. They need to have a smaller, their scale needs to shrink. The cumulative impacts are literally destroying communities. And that's what needs to happen. This is not some minor it's just minor quality of life impact. This is huge, and it's not just to these communities. We're in a time of a climate crisis, and what we are doing is we are going backwards, and we are literally using 19th century energy, diesel and coal, to fuel a 21st century technology that's supposed to save the planet. Excuse me if I'm a little bit skeptical. The impacts are huge.
Yeah, Paul, can I add something here?
Sure, please.
I grew up in Southern California, and I grew up in a steel town. They had a steel mill. It's the only steel mill west of the Mississippi. And back then also you had all this pollution from cars. This is before they mandated smog control devices on cars and would really reduce it. But when I was growing up, there was so much pollution from the steel mill and from the cars blowing in from Los Angeles. I literally knew people who died from the smog, from asthma. And sometimes on certain days, the county would set out helicopters over our community, telling young people to go inside because it was dangerous to play outdoors. And then when I was in high school and I had football practice, it got canceled because it was too unhealthy to do this. So if you're talking about allowing now thousands of diesel generators to go off, we're creating conditions like that. As a country, we dealt with it once. We got to deal with it now, and put people first.
Both of you raised some very, very important issues here. Unfortunately, it's not something that I can address. Maybe we should address it to the county executives in Prince William County and Loudoun County. Maybe they have better answers. But stick around for a moment. In case you are just joining us, we are streaming live across all social media platforms. We want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comment section below and tell us what you think about this idea of data centers in Northern Virginia. As we examine the rapid expansion of data centers across Northern Virginia, an industry powering the internet and artificial intelligence, while increasingly reshaping the communities around it. My guests are Elena Schulberg, who formed a citizen coalition to push back against the unchecked growth of data centers in her county, and Greg Pirio, a Loudoun County resident whose front door now sits steps away from one of those massive facilities. This time, let me start with you, Elena. Let's talk about the data centers, how they generate $1 billion every county. I was listening to somebody in Prince George's County across in Maryland. They are trying to lobby to bring these data centers there so that they can, share the pie as well. Get to, bring that level of income into their counties. What do you say?
First of all, I think that number is suspect. The issue with data center revenue is it's not taking into account, there's a balance sheet, right? What's the cost and what's the benefit? And once you start factoring in the cost of what it will take, for instance, Prince William County is a critical watershed for a drinking water supply for 1 million people in the entire region, not just Prince William. And right now we are experiencing high levels of salinity and the forever chemicals, okay? Where our industrialization is happening in Prince William is the headwaters of that watershed. It will cost billions of dollars for us to rehabilitate the Occoquan Reservoir or build a new quarry in order to ensure that there's access to clean water. And so what is that number? So it's not just the revenue, which, yes, you balance it against that, the cost of what is happening to our resources, but additionally, you may not be collecting that revenue, because if your end user is a federal contractor with a government, you are not collecting those taxes, which our supervisors did not understand as they approved these data centers. And I just shared with you the tax incentives. Virginia has left $1 billion on the table. And also, if someone were to say to you, listen, I'll give you $1 million, but you're not going to be able to breathe your air. It might harm your children, your family, your parents. Would you take it?
No.
Okay,
Absolutely
well,
not. Greg, you want to weigh in as well?
I just want to, what's going on in Northern Virginia is of interest to so many countries around the world right now. We're getting inundated by journalists from all kinds of countries. I met Elena because of the Swiss Public Broadcasting group came in with a crew to film what was going on, and that was in the context that I first met Elena. The Korean Broadcasting Corporation has come in, the Canadians, there's been French newspapers, BBC has covered this, and on and on. And I've talked to a lot of them, and what they want to do is they want to learn from us what is going on here so it doesn't happen in their country. That people in their countries need to understand what the development of data centers. Now, in Europe, there's an interest in data centers because they're saying with the tensions with the US government right now and that, they go, well, we can't rely on the United States anymore. We have to build more of our own data centers. But even in Africa, there's a plan to build out a lot of data centers. So people want to know what's going on. In fact, the journalist from the Canadian Broadcast Corporation, who I talked to, he said, yeah, there are people in Quebec, they're facing the same problem. They want to build these data centers. We want to learn from you. And so this is why what you're doing, Paul, is important here, is to hear the voices from the community. I'm new to this. I'm learning as I go. People like Elena have much more experience than me, but we're coming together because this is so important for the quality of life, for our environment, for in my case, my grandchildren. What kind of world are we creating for them?
How about to both of you? There are people who argue that this is a national security issue. Having this critical infrastructure in Northern Virginia, closer to the capital, is as best as it can get. And there is also a whole set of reasons why people think that having, for example, almost 87% of the world's internet passing through these counties is a great thing for Northern Virginia or for Virginia. So there are people who are looking at it from that perspective. But the two of you seem to think otherwise. Why?
Well, can I just say that the data centers are a national security asset, and they could be targeted. In fact, I know that data centers put in anti-drone devices to prevent bad actors from using drones to attack them. Again, what does that mean for neighboring communities? What, in terms of our safety, how is this all function? There's no transparency around it. Having this concentration in this area probably makes our country more vulnerable to mishap, because bad actors could disable the internet, and we're all so dependent on this as we're doing this live broadcast through the internet. You can imagine. But so that's another aspect to this. Why concentrate it all in one area if they're so important to our country? And somebody needs to think through this issue and think through the security aspects of this.
Elena, before you jump in, I wanted maybe to go back to it just a little bit. You brought up a very good point. Right now, the three of us are having this conversation courtesy of one of those data centers in your neighborhood. Isn't that a beautiful thing, Elena?
So once again, this build out is actually about AI, and the energy crush is about AI. It's not about getting your email. It's not about.
No, this is AI. We are using AI right now.
Oh, well then I'm really disappointed, because I make a real effort. I don't use AI.
Okay.
If I can. I mean, right now what's happening is the industry is putting AI into everything and hopes it will generate money. But if you start looking at the market watch, at the value of the debt to revenue ratio, it is way out of whack. So even if you are choosing to use AI in this program, it's still not enough to support the industry. Here is what I would say, first of all, about national security. The electricity grid in the United States is at risk. That is a fact. If we go dark, what happens to the data center industry? How long can they run on their diesel generators? So my question is, why are we risking the access to reliable energy for the AI industry? Right now, I don't see it as being a benefit. And what I see is we are risking the real world for the digital world. That is a fact. And when it comes to your front door in your community, I talk to people in Wisconsin, North Carolina. I talk to people not only all over the country, but all over the world. And they all say the same thing. I am afraid for my quality of life and the quality of life of my children and my grandchildren. We are going back. This is not progress as far as a sustainable world is concerned. And I guess that's the question. I mean, I think Elon Musk has a plan to go to Mars, but as far as I can tell, he's not taking the rest of us with him.
That's correct. Both of you bring up some very valid points. I respect your perspectives on this. There's something I wanted to ask earlier. I wanted to talk about, is it possible, as these data centers expand, is it possible for them to live side by side by by reducing their footprint on communities?
You're asking me first?
Sure, please go for it.
So here's what needs to happen. The reason why the coalition proposed a cost allocation 10 years ago was because if you have to pay for your own stuff, let's say somebody brings you to a car parking lot and they say, the world is your oyster, pick any car you want, you're going to pick a really expensive sports car probably. But if someone says you got to pay for it out of your own pocket, you're probably picking a Ford Fiesta, right? So if you want to have change, the industry has to start paying for their own infrastructure, all of it, because necessity is the mother of all invention. When that happens, then they will be good neighbors because they won't need to power, they won't need to cool. The chip will be the size of your pinky nail, right? Because innovation is going to happen. And then we're going to be left with a world that's full of these empty boxes, transmission lines, and generation that we are all paying for.
Greg, Elena brings up a very good point. Should these tech giants shoulder the burden of paying for this energy, shoulder the burden of these massive infrastructure projects that I've seen in those counties in Northern Virginia?
Yeah, if they don't do it, who does it? Who shoulders it? That's us, you know. So yeah, they need to do this. And you know, Paul, you're kind of singing the praises of AI here. But let me just add.
Just for the record, I'm real. I'm not AI,
I know you're a skilled journalist, but think of all the negative things that are happening because of AI that we as a society haven't dealt with. For instance, I on Facebook the other day, I posted something because I'm on the board of directors of a nonprofit in Uganda that helps youth and wanted to promote that. And then I get somebody coming in there and posting and saying, "Oh, you're wonderful. You're such a leader. You're doing this great stuff." And then I get, "Okay, let me. I want to be your friend. Can you know?" And I get an invitation to be a friend. And it's this attractive woman who does all this stuff. And so I was really suspicious, but it was all AI generated, you know, and so I could easily be victimized by AI. So we don't have any control there. The other thing is AI is apparently taking a lot of jobs away from people here in the United States. And well, that's what I'm thinking of. And so you hear reports and that about young people now going into blue collar jobs because they can't get white collar jobs and all this. What we're seeing here is a displacement of workers in that. And as a society, we haven't responded to it. So AI being used to manipulate people, to keep them online, to it affects their social life. I go to the gym and so many people are just on their social media sitting there watching this. Nobody hardly talks to each other anymore. You know, this is a big change. Our society and schools are banning smartphones now because of that. So, well, we as a society, we have to deal with this. We have to set limits. We have to decide how we're going to evolve so that we have a sense of community, belonging, connectiveness to each other. And we've lost that to such a big degree. We need to figure out how to get that back.
Elena, before the show, we were talking about how the counties claim these data centers are creating a lot of jobs. You've been around some of these data centers. You've seen firsthand what's going on there. Are they creating jobs?
So no. So I've been involved in land use for over 20 years because land use directly correlates with how you protect your natural resources. So as a preservationist and conservationist, I was very engaged. And jobs were always calculated by the long-term jobs. How many jobs do you bring with a Target? How many jobs do you bring with a commercial building, with a restaurant? The jobs that the data centers bring are the construction jobs. And then the construction is done. And then for a campus, 100,000 for a building, 100,000 square feet, maybe you have 4 or 5 people. There's a reason why the parking lots are really small. What we are experiencing, this is insane. We are now dealing with data center developers buying functioning businesses, very successful within what we would call the data center overlay. They just bought this Merrifield Garden Center that was not just plants. They had a restaurant, they had a little dog park. They employed on that 38 acres, probably 100 people. And then those 100 people provided other jobs. Now it's going to be replaced with the data center. And that data center on 38 acres will probably provide maybe, and I'm being very generous, 10 jobs. But we've also lost the Merrifield Garden was a place for people to congregate, to socialize, to interact with the people who could tell you all about the native plants. We are losing something so much more important than just the space that the Merrifield Gardens was. We are losing community at a time when people have never felt more isolated.
Interesting.
Can I add to that, Paul?
Sure.
Something similar is happening half a mile from where I live. There was a shopping center there, a small shopping center, and that had restaurants. There were Peruvian restaurant, there was an Indian restaurant, there was a Thai restaurant, and on and on. And so it was an area where people, and so these are recent immigrants who open up their little restaurants there and all of that. The shopping center was bought out by a data center company. They tore it all down. And so we've lost all that dynamic here too. And there's no place for them to go around. You know, there's nothing being built. It's all data center. And so that what Elena is saying really resonates from my own experience.
Yeah, Elena, since you live in Prince William County, I see a lot of pushback in Loudoun. Do you think Prince William is going to be the next place where these big tech is going to invest heavily in data centers?
So let me just take us back just for a moment. Prince William County experienced the largest data center project proposed in the world in 2021. And the Data Center Reform Coalition began in Western Prince William. Since that project was approved by our board, it has now been overturned. This morning, there's another campus bigger than that campus proposed right next to it that will actually abut Loudoun County. So now that new data center campus, which is 22,000 acres, will now pose a threat to the rural transition area of Loudoun. So Prince William and Loudoun are inexorably linked. And the reason why the world is experiencing this pushback against data centers is because of this connection between Western Prince William and Loudoun, which has now grown into Fauquier, and the citizen grassroots, like Greg, we are the firewall. The fight has come full circle back to local people pushing back. And if ever there was hope for the world, it is these small pockets of communities that are fighting.
So we're almost out of time. Looking ahead, what does the future look like? How do we balance innovation, affordability, and some of those concerns that both of you are raising?
First and foremost, I think we have to listen to the voices of the people who are impacted or will be impacted. And our government has to do a better job of doing that and hearing them and responding it. And we have to figure out as a society how to get money out of our political life so that it dominates everything. And so these are big issues, and we're at a historical stage now. But I really believe that a crisis is an opportunity for change and for betterment. And so we have this crisis. Let's turn it around. Let's make it good. Let's try to bring the corporate leaders along, that it's just not only about profit, it's about human values and human dignity. And those things are important. And everybody should be thinking along those lines.
Elena, you have the last word.
So I would not be going into year number 11 if I were not hopeful for change. And change is coming one way or another. We are all, the data center industry and the communities across Virginia, the country, and the planet, we're all on the same train together. And we either avoid the cliff or we go off together. The data center industry, they are woven into our fabric. And if we can't figure out a way for them to be more sustainable, to protect communities, then we are all in trouble. But I am very hopeful. And look, I get to meet people like Greg. I mean, my life is much richer because we are going back to that good old-fashioned community helping community.
I like that. I guess we end it there. Communities helping communities. Thank you both. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to both of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay, stick around for a couple minutes. Let me make sure everything is good. Thank you. It's been great talking to you, Elena Scholberger, who formed a citizen association to push back against the unchecked growth of data centers in Prince William County, and Greg Pilio, a Loudoun County resident whose front door now 6 steps away from these massive facilities. And of course, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to me, Paul Neo, on Substack, X, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Spotify. I will see you on another episode of Different Perspectives. For now, so long from Washington. And a big thank you to both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.